Awesome, awesome. So now let's talk about, so far we've talked about the introduction. I've talked about who I am, all those important things. And again, I think I did touch on, why we should be looking at cloud, some of the key things. But before we dive into, AWS, Azure, and GCP individually, let's look at the most valuable insight on this entire session, which is understanding these universal cloud fundamentals, right? I know most of us here are at different levels of our journey. Most people are already living it. Some are still new to it. So I'm not going to go in depth. I'm going to make sure it is on the baseline. Everybody is comfortable that way. We're not looking over anybody's head. It's going to be a gentle introduction. I'll try using analogies that would be perfectly understandable with you. But please, like I said, interject, jump in with questions wherever you have. All right. So going back again to the most valuable insight in this lesson is these three platforms make the huge chunk of cloud in general. Once again, Amazon's AWS, Azure from Microsoft, as well as GCP, Google Cloud Platform from Google. Okay. So they do have different names, but the key fundamentals are the same. And these are 6 pillars we are talking about. When we're talking about 6 pillars, these are the services that we actually use over the internet. Because what is cloud computing? Everybody here is probably familiar with it. If you're not, it's pretty much just providing you services over the internet. Okay. It's not necessarily having somebody's computer or having all your stuff on somebody's computer. It's a bunch of different services. Okay. So again, the terminology using cloud might not be very intuitive. It might sound like magic. But no, it's just that, in the past, if you have to start a small business, a company, you have to buy this hardware. The hardware usually made up of the CPU, the RAM, the storage, and then save it somewhere in a room. You have to take care of the power, the AC, the cooling, the heating, all that stuff. You have to pay people to maintain it. You have to make sure you update, you do patches, downtime, and so on. It's a whole lot. I've had the opportunity to install some in the previous positions that I had, and it's not fun. If you do it wrong, you just have a bunch of hardware that's just sitting there taking up space and not working. But now you're actually outsourcing all of this to these huge companies. These guys that have so much money, they have built data centers. It's like a whole city, which is just servers. So now you don't have to worry about all of that. Okay. So, it's like instead of you having to build houses, you just go in and rent. You don't have to worry about digging the foundation, making sure the blocks are okay, the roofing, and so on. You just come in with your furniture and live in there. Whenever you don't want to stay in there, you move. Not even just a house. If you're living from here to Japan, you want to visit Tokyo, you rent an Airbnb. You go in, you stay there for 1-2 days, a week, 2 weeks, you leave, you go to China, you do the same thing, you go to another country and do the same thing. All you're doing is renting that space. Okay. So what are some of the things that you're renting? You're renting the compute power. The compute is where you run your code. Everything when we talk about computers, be it your watch, your cell phone, your television, they are all using code. They are all running code. So in order for you to run that code, the code needs something which is more or less like the brain, the CPU, the compute. You also need storage. Where are you going to be saving the data? Because you might be getting information from your customers or providing them with content. All of that needs to be saved somewhere. So you're providing compute power, you're providing storage, then you have networking because those things need to be connected to one another. They need to be talking to each other. So that networking, that connection between your living room, your rest room, your kitchen, your bedroom, and so on and so forth is imperative to have it. Those are 3 of those pillars so far. Because then very, very important is security and identity. You don't want everyone that just gets into your compound to have access to your kitchen, your bathroom, your safe, and so on. So you want to have some kind of way to identify who can do what. That is where identity and security come in. Those are 4 so far we've talked about. Now we have databases. We're not talking just about saving data. We're talking about the structured data. So you want to understand databases, and there are multiple types of databases as you get to learn. Those who are focusing on the data part, which is what is the backbone of artificial intelligence, AI per se, you understand the structured data and unstructured data. We can get into that another day. So all of those fall under the databases. Now you have serverless and containers. Serverless and containers, again, the terminology is not very explicit. Serverless is not the absence of servers. It is just telling you that you're going to spend less time working on the servers. You're going to use less energy, less resources. Most of the time, people have to worry about configuring the server and so on. But now you just write your code and then it runs on the server. Containers, again, we're talking about modern development. Way back when, people used to write code and create everything as monoliths. Monoliths are like giant pieces of code. If one thing breaks, everything breaks. But now they're building it in containers which use something known as microservices. So in this case, if you have a system that's working on a microservice, let's say Netflix, if you want to watch a Netflix movie, it encompasses many things. You have to sign in, you have access to your account history, you have a whole log of movies to select from, and then you have recommendations. So if the recommendations are not working, Netflix as a whole is still working, just the recommendation service is not working. So you would probably say, yeah, this thing is not giving me the right recommendations, the recommendations are not working. But you'll not say Netflix is down. But back in the days when you write code, everything was tied together so that if recommendations broke, Netflix is broken. So that is what is meant by containers in modern deployment. So again, think about that landlord Airbnb situation. AWS is like your Airbnb. It has those properties everywhere. Azure is the Microsoft Office, your own company that already lives at work. Azure could be Hilton, all those major hotel brands, while GCP could be maybe just a regular, what do you call it in Cameroon? The apartment complex, the guys that have those long-term rentals. So again, Google started off with the maps, engineering, they're obsessed with data and speed. All of these are working on the same wavelength. The difference now comes in the way that they give the names to these services. Okay, with AWS, you have EC2, which is virtual machine, which is also compute engine. Those are all the same thing, but for proprietary reasons, they give them different names. So if you understand how a virtual machine works, you can implement that fundamental knowledge on Amazon Web Services, on Azure, as well as on Google Cloud Platform. The same with Lambda or Azure Functions or Cloud Functions. That goes about talking about serverless. If you know what serverless computing is, which is pretty much something like if you're someone that always organizes parties, in order for you to organize a party, you have to rent a hall. You want to also get a DJ. You want to get the ladies that will make the food and maybe get an MC and so on. What you want to do is you want to rent them just for that night. You don't want to have to pay for that hall for a month. You don't want to pay for that hall for a week, right? So that's what serverless does. You write your code so that you know that this code needs to work each time somebody uploads a file or uploads an image or downloads a file. So when somebody uploads that image, it runs for 2 seconds. That is how much time you're paying that cloud service for the services that you're using. If you're using the database service, if you're using the storage service, if you're using the networking service, you're charged only for that time that it's running. So you don't have to go ahead and say, if you're hungry, you want to eat puff puff, you're just going to pay for the time that lady is going to instantly appear, mix your puff puff, fry it, and she disappears. You don't have to pay for the 2,000 puff puffs that she's making the entire day and you're not eating all 2,000 of them. So that's what it makes it really, really amazing to use serverless computing. That's pretty much it. But you just have to understand the different names. Again, IAM, which stands for Identity Access Management, I believe. My terminology, I'm dyslexic, I always mix it up. So it's the same thing with AWS. Microsoft is fond of always changing their names. That's one thing you're going to encounter with Microsoft. So in Microsoft, it's all about Active Directory. The big companies out there, you already have it on your computer. You get hired to work for a company, you sign on your computer, you're using Windows. Windows is part of Microsoft's ecosystem. When you get on Windows, you're using Outlook. Outlook is part of Microsoft's ecosystem. You're using Teams, you're checking out your calendar, going to meetings, and so on. All of that is tied to the Active Directory. That is what it was called before. They renamed it now to Entra ID. Slight modifications here and there. Google also has the same thing, Cloud IAM. Those are all to make sure that, hey, if you have a casino, say you have a hotel, you go in, everybody has a key card. That key card, when you enter, you scan the key card at the door, you have access into the hotel or the casino. Just because you have access to that casino does not mean you have access to go and deal cards, or you have access to the vault, or you have access to the cashier's backstand to go and be counting money. You only have access to what that key card gives you access to. So you can be a guest, or you can be the teller, or you can be the vault manager, or you can be the dealer of the cards. So that is what IAM, Identity Access Management, is talking about. Now, very important as well is when we talk about Google, we have to talk about Kubernetes, which is, again, containers. So for those that are familiar with import-export business, way back when, when you say you want to import goods from Nigeria or from Equatorial Guinea into Cameroon, you get a bunch of stuff packaged together. Somebody is going to have soap, somebody is going to have sardines, another person is going to have drinks, another person is going to have clothes, and so on. You just pile up all those things, put them on the boat, and that's it. If you want to move your things from Nigeria to Cameroon, the same way. You put your car, you put everything all together. So all of that was kind of mixed up. It mixes up things it makes it difficult for the workers, make it difficult for the shipping company, makes it difficult for everybody, even the customer. Now, when you look at containers, think about someone that's now shipping all their stuff. They put it in a container. The container is always going to be the same size. If you're loading that on a ship, the ship always knows that whether the container is full or not, whether it contains vegetables or cocoyams, whether it contains couches or mattresses, whether it contains computers or cars, they are all going to fit in that size. It makes it easily manageable. The guys at the dock workers like Docker will know that, hey, we're getting this container. The container is going to take up this size. It's going to take up this space. We know we can land 10, 20, 50 containers on our ship, and that's it. So that's what containers are. In short, they package everything, be it one app or two apps or three apps, all the services, libraries that are needed for that app to run, and put it together so it's easy to manage. But the containers alone do not get the job done. You still need someone to be able to direct them, because you are playing the piano, someone is playing the guitar, someone is playing the harp, and so on, all those different instruments. You still need a conductor to be able to make sure that you come up with wonderful music synchronously. That's where Kubernetes comes in. So Kubernetes for short is K8s. The 8 is for number of characters that you have in Kubernetes. So some people call it K8s, right? So Kubernetes, again, if you see the logo, it has a helm. What we call in Pidgin a steering, the helm of a ship, which is round, and it's got these 8, I don't know what to call them, rungs, and so on. Because that is the person that controls the ship, that steers the ship, that is orchestrating everything on those containers or in those containers. So Google used Kubernetes. They created it. It had another name. I forgot the name. They created this Kubernetes, and it was wonderful for them. So they modeled their code and provided it to everyone for free, open source. That is how Kubernetes was created. And now playing the piano, it's available on Amazon Web Services, known as EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. Azure also has a version of it, AKS. Google also has a version of it, Google Kubernetes Engine. They all do the same thing. They orchestrate these containers to make sure that this modern development that developers do nowadays, they don't have to worry about everything. If you have one person logging on your website, the engine is going to spin up one container, you're good. But if World Cup is coming up, everybody is coming to your website from all over, they are going to automatically spin up more containers so that your system does not crash because of denial of service. You have all these services available to you. You can scale out, you can scale it. Some of the services might get stuck. So the Kubernetes engine automatically by itself is going to kill it and restart it. It does all of that for you on the fly, behind the scenes, because those Google guys were amazing enough to provide us with that code. So again, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So how many of you here have heard about Kubernetes in the past? Anybody familiar with that? What questions do you have so far on everything we've talked about? Okay, so I get a thumbs up for Mr. Henry. Everybody's good? Awesome. So that's pretty much it. Okay. So in a nutshell, understand those universal cloud fundamentals and apply it across the board. And then you should be totally fine whichever way you want to go. Now, let's talk about each of these big 3 cloud services, right? I know